it's Miss Rodriguez. Y'all are in my theater class, 9th grade to be specific, which is actually y'all's grade level. So, what you'll need is materials. This is a lecture-heavy lesson, but there is an activity at the end where y'all will be in groups, so y'all aren't going to be bored the whole time, I promise you. You can take notes. If you're interested in theater or acting, this is some pretty important stuff, especially if you are doing CCISD theater, or if y'all are wanting to do the Harbor Playhouse or Aurora, or even they have some in Cal Allen and around the area. But y'all will need a piece of paper and a notebook, at least for the activity, and a pencil and pen. Yeah. So what we will be learning is how to be more creative, especially when it comes to acting, using critical thinking, and building up more self-awareness, especially with your person. Acting is a lot of emotional and movement, and using your brain to put together pieces of a puzzle that you have for a character. And what you all will be doing is exactly the same thing, is learning what theatrical art is on your person, through your voice, through your feelings, your emotions. So, the importance of a monologue. Does anyone know what a monologue is? Read. No?
What is it?
Okay. A monologue is usually a shorter piece of a play or a musical. It could be anything, really, but it's a block. And so, it is one character at one time just throwing something out. And so, these are usually used to heighten movies or plays, musicals, all that same area. These are to add some kind of like problem, or if there's like a really big emotion one character's having and they just let it out, that's usually in the form of a monologue. One straight shot of just emotion. And these are to reveal characters who usually have internal issues or questions, or there's a problem and they have a speech. Has anyone watched the new season of Stranger Things? Robin has given like 50 monologues in that entire 4 episodes. But they're for a point, they're for a purpose. And so these are to reveal questions and feelings at the same time. There's different types of monologues, especially with all these different types of genres of movies and musicals and plays. Your first usually comes to mind is dramatic. So those are for your thoughtful, serious moments, those pieces that are really heartfelt. You have your comedic, those can also be in serious plays, just to add that kind of little light or dark humor, depends. So anything that's like, oh, haha, funny, you know? Your classical monologues, those are usually your Greek and older monologues, like Shakespeare, we all know Romeo and Juliet. Are also romantic and Victoria eras. Those are usually plays that are written for Old English. I know it's a little hard to say sometimes, but Old English is a dramatic and crucial part of theater. That's what built theater. And then you have your contemporary. Those are your, after the 1900s, your more modern, using modern language, modern feelings. Some of them are still pretty old, considering we're in the 2000s now, but they are the more modern era of monologues. So, your biggest parts of your monologues are your beginning, your middle, and your end. So your beginning, that's usually when you find out who your character is, what the problem is, the obstacle. Your middle is when they reveal what that like true motivation to either get rid of or bring up more problems, depending on the character. And then your end is how they attempt or don't attempt to change that. That's usually when you find out if your character is usually going on a villain arc or becoming a hero or just a better person in general. So the elements of a monologue. So first off, who is the character? Who's speaking? Who are you pretending to be? So the character is very vital because, I mean, that's who you're going to be playing for the 1 minute or the entire play scene. Your point of view. What's the situation that you're in? Why are you portraying this character? What are they doing? What's standing in the way of that? That's your obstacle. What's the issue? What's going on? So, what's the conflict? What is the actual problem? What challenges are they facing in that current moment? What's the resolution? How is the conflict solved? What do they do to solve it? Tactics. What do they do to achieve that goal? Setting. Where is this taking place? Are they in a school, a field? Are they at a job site? What happened before the character is speaking? That is very crucial, especially in acting. Knowing the before and after in between a monologue gives you so much more information than you think it does. Because what brought that character to do that monologue? And what would you call the monologue? Is it dramatic or is it comedic? It's very important to know what type of monologue it is as well, because what if you're doing a dramatic piece and you make it a comedy? It gets a little weird because you have to fit it in with the rest of the play. So when selecting a monologue, it's very important to look at all your factors of yourself. How old are you? You're like 15, 14? So it's easier to pick roles that are 5 to 10 years in front and behind your age. Now, you're 15, you're not going to play a 5-year-old. And you might have a little trouble playing a 25-year-old. But it's easier to do roles that are closer to your age, because that's usually what people who are doing casting calls or acting calls are looking for. They're looking for you, who you are, what your gender is, what your age is, what you look like. I know that sounds crazy, but they pay attention to that. Finding a monologue that fits your personality and that you agree with, or even you have a connection with. If you're reading a monologue and you're like, hey, this is something I do, or hey, I've been in this situation, that's really important because you have that kind of connection to it. You can make it your own piece. Read it all the way through. Don't read the first 2 lines and be like, yeah, that's good enough. If you read it all the way through and you're like, this kind of sucks, you're not going to have a good monologue. You're just going to read it out loud, monotone, and it's not going to get you anywhere. It should be a complete story, that whole middle, end, beginning, and there has to be a conflict. If it's not a complete story, you usually don't have a complete monologue, and that also doesn't help, especially in casting calls. It should be 2 minutes or less. Usually casting calls give you 1 minute, and that's to your slate and monologue. And you may ask what a slate is. A slate is basically stating your name, what your monologue is, and then reading your monologue. Sometimes they'll stop you in between and just tell you to go. Yeah, it gets harsh. And then avoid iconic or overdone scenes that everybody knows. Romeo and Juliet, or has everybody seen Wicked at least once? Any monologue that Cynthia Erivo did, you don't want to do because you're competing with her. I'm not Cynthia Erivo. I cannot compete with her. And I don't think I want to after her and Ariana Grande. So that's really important when you're picking your monologues. Okay, now here's the activity part. I'm going to put you all into groups and you're going to have 2 minutes. 2 minutes the time that you may have to read a monologue and then perform it. I have monologues here, so let me put you all in groups. Y'all are 17 now. Okay, so can you 3 work with those 2 back there? If y'all want to move forward, just in case so we don't get them in camera. You 3, actually, you and you go to one of those groups. Either that one or that. It doesn't matter. Okay. I'm sorry to split you all up. I'm sorry. So, having a bunch of monologues. One of them is my personal favorite because that's the one I just did for my acting 2 final. So if you get that one, I shall favor you.
I guess I'm over here. No, I'm going to go to sleep.
So together, y'all are gonna read y'all's monologue that I gave y'all. Just kind of skim through it, get the gist of what the monologue's about, get the gist of who the character is, and just let me give y'all 2 minutes.